Welcome to Lovesick, the podcast where we dive into health, wellness, and relationships and their impact on the world today. Come be a part of the discussion and join our community by following us on YouTube, Instagram, and listening wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Lovesick Podcast. I don't think I need to know today's date. We're keeping it casual today, y'all. Just, we have we're doing these like little cool special shows. And so today we're getting to know our hosts. So today we're learning about Michael Fishman. You may have heard of him. He's been around for a second.
I'm on the hot seat today.
Michael's on the hot seat.
Well, Dot already shared kind of her journey when we started this.
Yes.
So I was voluntold. I was asked if I wanted to share. So I said, okay, I'm an open book. So we're going to take you a little behind the scenes of our show. But really, I'm allowing Jada and Dot to ask me anything that's normally off the board or that I may or may not have talked about before. See, this is trust. Like I said before we started, I'm like a blindfold and a cigarette short of a good time right now. So, okay, fire away.
Fire away. Okay, we'll start it with the bait. We'll start slow. Here we go. Okay. Ease into this stuff. Yes. As I know you all who listen and stuff, I know we have like a really great following and so happy to have this and just wanted to, Michael, can you just kind of give us a little bit on your professional background and how you got started in this industry and what keeps you going in this industry because this industry
it can be hard. Yeah, she just mouthed a lot of words we probably can't say
loud, Jay.
On radio or on camera anywhere that are often deserving. I don't know. I think the joke at ABC for a long time was that I was the youngest dinosaur because I've been in this business like 36 years, which is kind of crazy to say.
How's that? You're only 25.
No, I wish. I wish. No, I'm the oldest one in the group. We go out. I'm the oldest one claiming the most years. Yeah, started at 6, started on Roseanne. Couldn't have started really any higher, so I got to see kind of the highest point you can have in this business because we were the number one show for 6 years. Grew up in controversy and chaos from the national anthem incident to the tweets hurled around the world to being canceled and watching cancel culture and having my public life kind of become very, very, very public because there is no such thing as a private life when you grow up this way. But there's large portions of my career I think people don't know. I've worked in every aspect of this business and worked on the crew side. You and I have, met along the way in many different facets.
Yep.
I was the talent in some places, which you and I hate that term because I think it makes people really arrogant. And I think, for me, and you and I have had this conversation, is everybody has talent. And I believe that everybody shares their talent in a unique way. So what I've tried to do is celebrate people, and it's led to really good friendships, and that's kind of what led me here. So how's that?
Here we are.
Here we are. Well, and look, and just for those, I'm sure everybody knows, but you have to tell them what was your character on Roseanne, just for those who may not know.
So I played DJ, DJ Connor. I was the youngest child for the majority of the show.
Right.
I was the comic relief. I was the really strange character. I was the guy who did all the wacky, weird little brother stuff. And it was a beautiful gift, kind of getting to be an iconic little brother and growing up in that fashion. And then having people have their own perspectives and implications of that and kind of the way it interacts, as Jada's seen when we go out to lunch. Sometimes
that haircut.
I had that
Let's bring it back.
horrible bowl haircut for a decade.
Now I know they remember who you are.
Look at that. That's a great picture.
That might be one of the most smarmy pictures I've ever taken. This is one of the things about growing up public is like every horrible picture you've ever taken in your life is all over the internet.
Picture.
Comes back.
It
comes back.
So
this industry is weird, right? Because it's you get to play a child on a very iconic television sitcom, but then you also have to be grown up, right? And at the same time, basically, because it's like, here's a child with a job
Mhm.
and helping to support family members and whatnot, but then also just kind of like you're growing up too. And in this
Yeah.
industry, I mean, I wasn't a child in this industry, but seeing things even in my 20s and things around you, you turned out pretty damn good.
I
Yes,
like
you
this.
did.
I like to
I
say.
concur.
I like to say most of the areas I crash and burn, I was really honest about and learned quickly.
Right.
The truth is, you make mistakes. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. The difference is all of mine end up on. Well, now it's TMZ. Back then, it was like on the National Enquirer or whatever.
With the
You know,
Bigfoot.
yeah.
Like, Bigfoot and then Michael Fishman.
That's my childhood, really. And it's interesting because you have to be professional. So, I'm 6, 7 years old. If I show up late to work, nobody goes and yells at the person who drove you. They're mad at you because
Right.
you're held to a certain responsibility. And so some parts of that were good. Like, I had people who took me to work. My grandfather usually took me early in the week the first couple years, and then I had a nanny set sitter kind of person, and my parents usually took 1 or 2 days a week. And there were years where, like, some of my nannies, I had to set the alarm, and I'd sneak into their room the night before. I did it for years of sneaking into the room and setting their clock forward 30 or
Right.
40 minutes because
To
they were
make
always
sure.
late. Like,
Yeah.
just
You're
and
like, you got one job to bring me
seriously,
to this.
seriously, but I would get to work and they'd be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you guys are like 10 minutes early," and they would turn to me and look at me, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
because I don't want to get yelled at, right? But there's also the flip side of, I grew up with a lot of great young people who were early in their professional lives, and we played football and baseball and sports, and we broke a lot of windows, and I had to take the blame every time because I couldn't get fired and they could. So there's,
Mm.
that was a great lesson, but then my dad would find out, and my dad's an old school.
Yeah.
He's a tough guy. So there'd be punishments for that later. People would be like, "Oh, aren't you so proud of how responsible your son is?" And my dad, he'd be like, "You're riding with me tonight." And I'd be like, "Oh, no." And the reality is, I can't sell out the people I work with. What am I going to
Right.
say? The electrician broke the window.
Yeah.
The prop guy broke the window. Like, they're going to lose their job.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about that because when you say you had to pretty much take the fall for everybody, so mentally, how much stress did that put on you because you were so young? Did you feel like that was a lot of pressure because you had to like take the blame for everybody pretty much? And how much pressure was that actually putting on you and especially emotionally?
I don't think I ever looked at it that way. If I'm
Mm.
being really honest, Dot, like,
Yeah.
I looked at it as this beautiful place, and like that came with like if I wanted people to play, the only way they could keep playing
Right.
is if there wasn't a big consequence at the end. Because like for me to get yelled at, I was gonna get yelled at. But if somebody lost their job, that's their family, right?
Mm.
I grew up with adult stakes really early on, as everybody I knew had a job and a mortgage and kids, and like
Right.
so my perspective on some of that was swayed early. And I don't know if it's my personality or if it's just the role I took, but I was pushed into a role of accountability really early.
Mhm.
When the national anthem incident occurred in 1990, everybody else stopped doing press. And there was about a 2-month period from when it happened to the beginning of when we went back to work where we weren't
Right.
sure if the show was going to get canceled. And we had this beautiful PR guy. He was one of the best people I've ever known, one of the kindest people. His name was James Anderson. And he literally was like, "I'm going to give you PR training. We're going to send you out in the world because somebody has to go do these interviews and nobody else is willing, and you're really good at it." And then the joke from upper above him when he was told that this is what's going to happen, he's like, "I'm really sorry, but it's really come to everybody. Everybody has the same conclusion, which is they can only be so mean to you,
Oh,
right?
damn.
Because so if they're going to send you out in the world, so
You got the bowl cut.
well,
So
that's it. You can only be so mean to the kid with
Oh
the
my
bowl cut,
God.
right? So if
And
you're
look, I'm
going
not
to use,
even gonna laugh because I used to have the bowl cut. Remember?
you wanted it.
look, if you
But I wanted
But
it.
you
though.
wanted
if
it.
you can
I
use a
wanted
meat
it.
shield, use the young meat shield.
Yes.
Right.
So, and that was part of my life and part of my training. So I
Mhm.
think, and I actually loved that opportunity. It led to me getting to travel all over the country. It led to meeting all kinds of people. It changed my perspective. That there were horrific moments, but there were a lot of really beautiful moments, and that I have I've never had the ability to walk away from something that happens, right? Because I'm a public person. So that meant that I always had to take accountability, especially when I screwed up. And in some ways, actually, I think it was really good for me. And I would tell people now, it's a lot what people are facing now through social media.
Yeah.
And for young people who are suddenly realize that, they make a post and it may go viral and then there's big time consequences. That was my whole life.
Yeah.
So it makes you grow up fast, and I think I tried to find the fun and the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being young and having that social media?
Yeah,
I think
that's
I
a
dodged
lot.
that part.
Yeah.
Every time I'm on social media, I hold my breath. I've seen it go horribly, horribly wrong.
But you know what? You can look Michael Fishman up. I'm telling you, if you find anything wrong, please send my way because I would like to.
No, I mean, look, there are tweets sometimes. Sometimes
Yeah.
you take a position and then weeks, months, years later, things have changed or your perspective has
So
changed
true.
or
It's true.
you look at something and you go, oh, I might have been on the wrong side of that, right? I mean, even Roseanne's tweets, I condemned what she said in the tweets because I thought they were wrong.
Mm.
Right.
And she said they were wrong. And so I adamantly feel strongly that we do have to be conscious of the way we say things.
Mm-hmm.
There's more nuance there. And I sometimes I wish I had said things just, I don't even know how better, but better, right?
Mhm.
Like maybe, or more compassionately, because watching how it made her feel, even though we don't agree,
Mm.
Oh, that's interesting.
I do care,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of the things is you don't know how things are going to be received, but you also the truth is intent matters, but the reality is the action really is the only thing that matters. Because in the
Right.
end, and no different than hers, like you may have meant that as a joke, but it was horribly offensive and racially insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is, it's like if you go up to somebody, he's like, I punched somebody and I thought I was joking around. Well, if they fall and hurt themselves, you're still responsible. The
That's
outcome's
true.
still the
Yep.
same.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I've been forced to live that way my whole life. And I think there's a really great part of it is because there is no gray area, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of that. And it gives you the perspective of at least when you blow it, like the one thing I'll say is I've tried to own it. And I've tried to be really honest. I'm a very inclusive person, pretty open about concepts, but I also try not to stick my nose into stuff that's not my
Right.
area. And I don't love talking about politics, so I occasionally say stuff, but for the most part, and then the other part is I try not to have a persona. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. I think that's where
Right.
famous people go wrong is
Mm-hmm.
you try to create this perfect persona or the persona that you think the world's going to like or this character. And then you have to try and keep that up and live that way
Oh,
for
yeah.
extended periods. And I think that's what you see with a lot of reality people is they kind of go crazy because like that version of them is not the version that it's not sustainable.
Right.
You
It's
can't
not
live
the
that
true
way.
version. Yeah.
You be living on some. As a person who works with a lot of reality stars, the way the way you perform on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could you imagine walking? You cannot walk around every day. I mean, you could. Maybe somebody is.
But you know this
Yeah.
because you've helped shape some of this stuff. Or
Yeah.
you've helped them plan some of this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So it's really hard because you have to heighten things. If we
Mhm.
follow anybody around with a camera just regular, it's not interesting.
Of course not.
Yeah.
No.
Most people's days, I mean, we all do a bunch of boring stuff
Yeah.
in between everything.
Yeah.
All that stuff's cut out, so everything's heightened. I mean, you've worked in reality TV.
Yeah.
Like, JD, they did say a lot of those things, right? But that might have been the moment out of a 2-hour conversation, right?
Yep.
You're not walking around talking like that all the time. And if you are, man, it's exhausting. You burn yourself
That's a
out.
life I did not want.
No, not a life I want either. So
Oh boy.
It's actually funny because we had this conversation on Fish's call sheet, and I remember I would say people would always come up to me and be like, "Oh my God, my family, or we all need a reality show," and you're like, "Why do you need a reality show?" Like
Right.
it got to the point where I stopped when I was traveling, or I'd meet people and they'd be like,
Yeah.
"What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm a student," or "I'm a teacher," because
Right.
literally
Because everybody in the world wanted a show.
because everybody wanted a show. Yeah. And so I was like, I
executive
would get exhausted. Even just even when I'd come back, live here and then go back home to Maryland or something.
Right.
And then I'd just be on the plane and I would just be like, and I know it's terrible because it's like, I'm not I love doing what I do. And I love my work and stuff. But I don't want to talk about it all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, that's probably
That's
goes
not
with anybody.
terrible.
If you're a doctor, you're probably like, gosh, I just
It's
spent
not
all day.
Well, if you're a doctor,
Yeah.
you're fine probably talking about the medicine part of it that excites you.
Yeah.
But everybody walks up to you and goes, "Oh, hey, I got this rash, right? Or I have this symptoms. What does this look like to you?" And then like at a certain point, you're like, I don't have any of the information. I don't have any of the test stuff. I don't have any diagnostics here.
Right.
And I'm just trying to enjoy lunch with my kid, and I don't want to see or hear about your rash or where
Yeah,
it goes, right? Like,
exactly.
I actually wonder if my sister, if I get on her nerves, because sometimes I'm like, because she's a nurse, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this happened, and she's very good
Yeah.
about it, but I'm like, do I use this too much?
But that's
she's my
totally
sister.
different, though.
but it is.
Yeah, that's different.
It's like the acting.
Sorry,
thing.
Casey.
I think, yeah. Casey, we're very, very sorry. For all of us asking you for medical advice. No, the actors thing is a funny thing because I've been incredibly successful.
Mhm.
Most people would walk around and be like, "Hey, I'm an actor." Hey, like
Right.
we joke
You
about
don't have a
this all the
T-shirt
time.
being like,
No, because you know me, like everybody always has that phrase of like, "Do you know who I am?" And I'm like, if I have to tell somebody who I am, I haven't
Right.
done anything.
Yeah,
important,
yeah.
or I haven't like. So I have the opposite.
part.
stance. If I have to tell you I'm an actor, it is totally irrelevant to you. 'Cause
Totally.
what I do doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
Do you ever get the people where you're like, are you the
Oh,
the
yeah.
guy?
Or do they just say, "Hey, DJ"?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know this because we've been out to lunch and people are like,
Now you got to call him Tad.
so Tad is an interesting case because I played this not so ideal human being, and I went to go visit my daughter at college,
Yeah.
and one of her teammates turns to me and she's like, "You're that guy." She goes like, "It's nice to see you," and I was like, "That's a real person, right?" She's like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, that's not." I said, "If you want to call me
Yeah.
something, that's not the one to
Yeah.
look at." Like,
Yeah.
like, especially not out in a public place.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
do it
talk
time.
about that, though. Let's talk about that Lifetime movie.
Wait, we watched it 2 times in a row.
We did. Because I was like,
Never seen it.
the reason that I was like, damn, he is really good. And you were so believable. I was like, oh my gosh. But let's talk about that
Okay.
because, you were in that movie
Mhm.
and I forgot the name. It was
It's,
Abducted by my
By my
teacher.
teacher.
okay,
Elizabeth
abducted by
Thomas
my
story,
teacher.
based on a real life events. of a
Exactly.
young
So
woman who-
I know, like looking at those scenes in that movie, I know you had to be very uncomfortable with some of those scenes, but that's why it's called acting, even though that was a true event. Whoa, yeah.
See? Look at
So let's talk about that though. Seriously.
That's how I look at food.
Yeah. Good. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
But let's talk about what you actually felt, because we did talk about it a little bit off camera a while back. But let's tell the viewers who may want to, get a little bit of into what you felt,
It's
filming this movie.
But also give us a background on the.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the only downside to doing this film, the one thing I regret, is the plan was to do a bunch of media afterwards and talk about grooming and kind of have this conversation about the dark side of kind of what led to this,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the things I was willing to take this role to do. It's one of the
Right.
things that, because of my PR background that we talked about,
Right.
I felt really well equipped as a dad of daughters to have that conversation. So for people who don't know, basically he was a teacher who kind of groomed a student and they had a relationship, and then he basically, depending on how you define it, kidnapped her.
Mm-hmm.
She ends up going with him. They go on the run for a while. It was like this cross-country manhunt, and but it really, the film itself, the nice part is Sean Linden, the director, and Juliet, who was the producer. We looked at the script and we took out the stuff that was really just like
Creepy.
unnecessarily gross, which
Yeah.
was because initially there were like, there's scenes with them like in a bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't really need to show that.
No.
And Sean was really bright
No.
because he's like, no, we'll
Yeah.
just hint at it, right? And let the audience fill it in.
Right.
And I think that was really important because in some ways it's creepier, but also you're never going to use those scenes. And
Yeah.
so Summer, who plays the young girl in this, she didn't have to go through any of that. So we're
Yeah.
very conscious. Part of me being the dad, I wanted to be very conscious
Sure.
of her experience. I was constantly checking in. We had an intimacy coordinator. But you're basically playing a predator.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so
Didn't you feel
opposite.
creepy?
Oh, I felt horrible.
I know. Good gosh.
There
I
were,
mean,
this scene from that picture that
yeah,
you showed.
you played
Still
this
showing.
very well.
We still see
It's
it.
Yeah.
really interesting because you have to be creepy,
Yeah. You have to get into the character.
but at the same time, like, luckily I'm not a method actor. Like, I don't have to get too deep into it. It's easy for me to go in and then get out
Yes.
because I think those people drive themselves crazy, and
Mhm.
I feel really bad for people who trained exclusively that way. I trained with it, like, trained with this amazing acting coach named Steve Easton, who used to do this amazing class that was really about kind of autonomy and just being in the moment and then walking away from it.
Mm.
And I think that has been such a beautiful gift for me as a performer. I've
Mhm.
done a lot of affected memories and spatial work and all of that stuff, and Meisner-esque and Stanislavski and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that really made me fall back in love with acting after years of being away from it was going to Steve Easton's class
Mhm.
and having this choiceless awareness where I could walk away from it and then doing improv.
Right.
This is a perfect example. I mean, when I look at that photo, you said it's like how you look at food, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and to be that dark, and there are moments, there are words I had to say to her that are, and she's so innocent, right? And
Yeah.
she's
Oh,
20
my
years old now. I
goodness.
think she's almost 22, but she looked like she was 14.
Right.
Mm.
And there are these things you have to say. They're horrible.
Right.
So it was beautiful to, I went up to Canada to shoot this thing. We were racing against time to get it done before the strike. It's an all Canadian group of people. I was the only
Oh.
non-Canadian, and they made me feel so at home. That crew was
Mhm.
so amazing. I got so close to those people, but they would come up to me and be like that scene in particular, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No."
Right.
And I said to them at the time, and I really do believe this, I love the fact that I wasn't okay.
Mhm.
I love the fact that I hated those moments and that it was going to be hard, because that is the thing that keeps me from being that kind of person, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
not being so method and not falling into
Yeah.
some weird actor trick of like, I have to become a total creep. To know, but then to drop all of that as a performer and to
Mhm.
be able to let go and find that flow space and
Right.
like let yourself go and then be creepy and be all these things and be manipulative and groom someone and then have this inappropriate, like, to set up that environment in a way that's believable. It was a beautiful test and a beautiful humbling experience. And some days I had 8-9 pages of dialogue where Summer has one word answers back and forth. Those are almost monologues. It's like, can you do this? Can you do it at the highest level? Can you lead? Can you be number one on the call sheet? And then Summer, technically, I think, was one on the call sheet. But can you set a tone
Mhm.
for professionalism on this set? Can you
Right.
go dark? Can you be that horrible being?
Mhm.
And then when the camera's off and they yell cut, can you still be the kind, loving person that you want to be and build relationships with people? Like that, I loved that challenge and I loved that opportunity. And so it's so different than everything I've ever played.
Yeah.
So
You
different than
played it
anything I ever
well.
did. So I
I tell
appreciate
you,
it.
you
But,
played
really
it
good. It
well
was really
because
well done.
I mean, it was definitely well done because looking at it and like you said, watching it for a second time, I was like, oh my gosh, he is so into the character. But then watching it, I was really kind of feeling for you because I was like, oh my gosh, how is he feeling, portraying this horrible person and being able to act his way through? That's what you call good acting. That's
thank you.
great acting.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
was, and it's really, I think the way I've gone through life is like that decision to take that role was partially a conversation with my daughters.
Mm.
Because I sent them the script and said, hey, look at this and give me your feedback. What are your thoughts? Because the other part is they're going to have to live with dad doing this, right? Which I
Yes.
don't think enough performers think about. You take roles and you just go do them as an
Mhm.
adult and you don't realize, because it's not today that your kid, film, television, these things live for eternity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
That's
It's,
true.
it's 10 years later. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a grown man and this is going to be the visual of this for those of you who are just listening. So we did a masturbation episode called Homeward Bound, like in 1996 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me for being
That
gross
was a
from it, but
hilarious
I
clip.
I literally, to this day, people walk up and go, "Hey, you're that guy," and I'm like, "Put your hand down. Don't do that in public," right? Like they're literally making masturbation hand gestures.
Yeah.
Strangers that you're like, "You're
Yeah.
that guy from that show," and I'm like,
This is what some people remember,
so
whatever it is.
20 years later,
You were like, what, 12? Or how old?
yeah, I was like
Wow.
13. So
Oh my God.
I know doing this project
Mm-hmm.
that there's some residual to that. And
Yeah.
like my daughter's in college, so she was going to have that. Like I said, her teammates thought it was funny, right?
What was her feedback? What were your kids' feedback about it?
She's pretty mature too,
Mhm.
especially my youngest daughter. My older daughter said she's an actor, so she's like, take the part. It's a part. Go. Right? Plus,
Okay.
you're a lead. Like,
Yeah.
go, Dad. My younger daughter was really interesting because she is much more nuanced, and she
Mhm.
said, "How are you going to talk about this?" And so I almost had to defend the decision to take it.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, "Well, something that's actually really good about this is because it's a real story. When they look it up online, there's a real person to see."
Right.
Yes.
It's
She
not
said, so people aren't going to confuse it
Yeah.
with you for real to the
Right.
same level as some of the other roles you've taken.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
And she said, she goes, I read it. She goes, the first time I read it, she said I was like gross and no. She said, but then I went back and looked, she said, and there's really nothing, there's no gross moment. There's no big makeout
Mhm.
scene. There's none of that stuff, right? Even there's one kiss in the film. Like we used a body double for that.
Okay.
And she said to me, she said, Dad, it's really going to be hard for you. If you think you can pull it off, go do it.
Yeah.
She goes, I think you should take it.
So they were supportive, which is great.
Yeah.
And they knew that you could pull it off.
Well, I
you
also
know.
think when you play a role so well, and there's so many.
Ooh,
But think
so many
about
actors out
these
there like
actors
that.
out here who are the
Yes.
villains, and they play these villains so
Robert
well.
De Niro.
But then you start looking at them, and you're like, and they're actors, but then you're
Yes.
also like, man, they play
Yeah.
a role really well. Are you really a villain? Like it's
But
No,
everybody has
but
good and
that's
bad
so
in there.
sure,
That's
right?
so true.
But
Yeah.
you start to look at people different. And there's also a part of me that was like, I was hoping, especially with the goatee and everything else, my hope, and this has been some of the feedback I got that I'm actually probably most proud of, is there was a bunch of people who were like, I got halfway into this film because there's a point where my character shaves. Well, I didn't really realize it was you until I got to that point. And I was like, that's the greatest compliment you can ever give an actor,
Wow.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, you disappeared.
Mhm.
Or a few people who are friends of mine called me and said, dude, I didn't see Michael at all.
Mm.
Like that, that's
Wow.
not you.
No, yeah.
And I'm like, good, because that's not me.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, because I joke.
Let me just make that clear.
As a guy who used to be a bounty hunter, like these are the people I took to jail. That was the other part for me. I was like, man, this is so opposite
Yeah.
of who I am.
Exactly.
Like, my buddy and I took a couple of people like this to jail. So there was part of that where it's
Yeah.
like,
But that's why
ooh,
it's called acting, and they're great actors and they're actors that couldn't pull it off. It's funny because sometimes and Jada knows, like, I watch different programs because of the actor. You
yeah,
know what I mean? It could be, and again, Robert De Niro, I love Robert De Niro because when he acts,
yeah,
Yeah.
you think that that's his character. Another person that I always kind of like, I look at Denzel
oh yeah, that's
Washington.
fantastic.
And Denzel, if I don't know how he is at home, I'm sure it's not like it is on screen,
No, yeah.
Right,
but
right.
he nails it like every time.
Well, I was lucky because I grew up with so many legends,
I was just
Mhm.
gonna
and I would
comment.
watch them transform.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of things like, John Goodman.
Oh yeah.
I watched John Goodman go from a relatively unknown to the legend that he is now.
Mm-hmm.
But John is shy. John is a huge guy, but he's quiet
Yeah.
offset, and he's very hard on himself, and he's very driven and wants to be great. It's a very interesting thing because sometimes people will meet him in public and they're like, "Oh, he was a little rude." It's like, no, he was shy.
Okay.
He wanted his space, right? But also, like in John's case, John is so big, John can never go anywhere and blend in, right? Like
Right.
John can't
Right.
put a hat on and like,
Yeah.
and so when you live that way all the time, it can be exhausting. Like, Jada and I have joked the pandemic was beautiful for me because it was the first time in this one element it was the first time in my life where I wore a mask. And if I had a
Mhm.
mask and a hat on, it's the only time I've ever had anonymity my whole life.
Right.
So that part of that gave me a glimpse a little bit into a life I'd never had. And there were moments where I was like, oh man, no one's asking me any questions, or I don't have to
Or
worry so
looking
much, or
at
looking,
you.
or just staring.
Yeah.
They might not always know why,
Right.
but I had anonymity. And plus, I went places with my kids for the first time where I'm always on a heightened level of like security and safety,
Mhm.
where I could not be at a 10. I could be at an 8, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying I totally relax, but like, and so I guess part of it is also, you asked about stress before. I grew up with bomb scares and death threats. I grew up
Yeah.
with people having really powerful reactions. So what I would tell you is my scale's different. And I think psychologically my brain's just wired a little different from
Right.
that.
Yeah. I actually really my biggest thing is coming from the other side of the camera
Mhm.
and on the producer side. I love how you know your crew members,
Oh,
you thank them, you highlight them because, a lot of people forget about us in the back and it takes an ensemble
Mhm.
to make these amazing things and what you see on screen happen. So I think it's really cool that you do that.
No, I
it means
agree.
everything.
I agree because um, later on they could end up being your boss. You know what I
Well,
mean?
just
You
mean
know,
that, but just
But
it
no,
is true. No,
but
somebody
that
can go
part,
from
yeah.
PA. Like, look, I've watched people who no one knew who they were,
Mhm.
who are now huge. I mean, I watched Amy Sherman Palladino go from the beginning of her writing career to being a huge, just a mega writer
Mhm.
who's brilliant. She was always brilliant, but she got the opportunity. I watched Chuck Lorre transition, through his career.
nice.
I've worked with some of the most amazing people. The truth is, while that would be beautiful, that's not the reason for me. And I think
Mhm.
Jada and I have talked about this a lot. I have this thing about, like I said before, film and television lives forever.
Mhm.
It means my name is etched in eternity alongside every member of that crew. And every member of that crew had a contribution. It's why I hate the term talent, because it implies that the people in front of the camera are somehow more valuable or talent in a way that everybody else isn't.
Mhm.
And having worked on the crew, and part of the reason I took those crew jobs was I never saw a distinction or a separation between being an actor and being an electrician or being a camera person or being your cinematographer. When I'm a director, I'm no less creative as a director. It's just a
Right.
different set of skills. And the other part is I just love people.
Yeah.
There's this thing about when you walk into a set, there's this beauty of knowing everybody's name.
Mhm.
Nothing breaks my heart more than when I go to talk to somebody and they're like, you're the first actor who's ever known my name.
Oof,
Wow.
oof,
Like,
yeah.
that's a huge insult to all the
Yeah.
other actors,
Yeah.
in my
That
opinion.
is. Yeah.
Or, as a director, we got done with an episode of The Conners, and one of the background people turned to me and said, no one's ever used my name the whole time. Because I asked them all their names. I don't want to be, hey, you, move
Yeah.
3
Mhm.
feet to your right.
Right.
Or if I have a correction as a director to a camera operator, unless I'm really far away and have to do it over a walkie in a film scenario, sometimes you have to use community. I'm going to take the walk. I'm going to come over and have a personal conversation with you. I'm going to interact with you because part of that is that's where I get to see your magic and your beauty. Because you may turn to me and say, over the radio, you're probably not going to tell me. But if we're up close, you say, oh, I was looking for this or I was doing that. It's like, okay, well, in this, I need this, right?
Mhm.
And this is why I'm going this way. But I'm going to keep that in mind, or we're going to use that later. Part of it is knowing the people you work with. I mean, even in my early
true.
days as a multicam director on the Conners, we had an assistant, AC, which is a camera assistant, Marianne, who wanted to be a camera operator. There's only 3 female camera operators in multicam total.
Wow.
There is so little diversity on that side, and there's very little gender representation. I was like, we need to train you because a lot of the older camera operators are aging out. And I turned to the guys who had been there years, and I've
Mhm.
known people for 20, 30 years. I said, you guys okay with training her? Absolutely. So I targeted a scene or two every week, and she literally got to be the camera operator, and we trained her.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, it was great because my last episode directing on the Connors, an hour before we were supposed to start production, one of our camera operators tested positive for COVID.
Oh,
So that means we can't start working until we have another camera operator.
Right.
Well, we have one in
yeah.
the building now,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
She's ready. She's here. And I got to have the blessing early in my directing career to be her first opportunity as a camera operator.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Now she's working on other shows. She's working for Chuck Lorre on another show as a camera operator. So she's now moved up the ranks. That's my job
Mm-hmm.
as a creative person or as a person
Right.
at the higher level, is to create space and open doors and create opportunities, not just for inclusion, but for people to advance and to watch people
Right.
get their dream.
And
Yeah,
just as
I
a
mean, that's
human
what I did.
being, you know, someone that just care about other people and helping them to try to reach their goals.
I mean, I
You
just
know?
remember being in my career and being like one of 10,000 PAs.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, well, you know, I mean, obviously there's some people who just look at us as the 10,000 PAs, but I remember being like, this is a great learning opportunity for me to start working my way into figuring out what this person does and this job and whatever. And, you know, it does take some of these people, because I have a boss, a former boss, but we're still friends now, who I still think of him now every time that he's transitioned me out of that role. Because I came up to him and I was like, he's like, what do you want to do? And then we were just chatting.
Mhm.
And then since then, and you know, I still work for him sometimes, but it's
The-
great. Yeah.
People who open doors change your life.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And I don't ever want to be the person, and some of this is having experience people's preconceived notions,
Mhm.
right? Because there are people I work with, even as an adult, like one of the struggles going to be a director on the Connors is some of those people still see me as the 6-year-old they met,
Mhm.
right? And that's not an insult. That was their big experience with me.
Right.
And then they went off in their world and did other things, and they come back and they meet me, and I'm in my 40s, but for them, that's where the connection starts. I can't get mad at them that that's their mindset. And
No.
I think that's true of, we talk to people who have on this show who have conditions, health
Mhm.
conditions. It's very easy for people to start associating you with that, right?
Yes.
Or to
Mhm.
label you and to see you that way because that's how they know you, or that's what they met you through. And
Mhm.
the reality is, no, that's part of who I am. That's not who I am. And I hope people are growing and changing. I'm not the
You're
same
not
person
6
I was at
anymore?
15. Thank God. Because 15, I was a grumpy, angry young man who just ended an amazing show, and like I was feisty and looking for trouble. So I had to grow out of it.
Speaking of, actually, you know, in our industry, just as a whole, it's like we going for that next job, right? So I think a lot of people, what the misconceptions, and I know you've had people have some misconceptions of you, but like I know when I was coming out as a producer, everybody's like, "Oh, she must be like a billionaire," and it's like, no, 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 no. I'm working and I have to work, you know, and it's so I think, what are some of the misconceptions you've had as, you know, as an actor, producer, director? I mean, you do everything, but
Everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first one is that you work all the time or that you don't need to work. And I think that's true in a lot of things. I think it's natural for the human brain to want to categorize people. The truth is, we're all so much more complex than that. That you're so rich that you don't need to work, because I never got paid very much, including when I came back this time. I'll just not say very much about that because it doesn't lend itself.
Right.
But I never made more than I did when I was 15 in 1997. So if you do the math on that, that's not exactly equitable. I'm the only person who doesn't own a piece of that show. And that's a contractual thing. And here's the reality. You can complain, you can get mad. The way I look at it is those were all learning lessons. And for
Mhm.
me, it kept me hungry. I didn't get rich from working on the show. Some bad investments by my parents with good intentions, some wasteful stuff, some betrayal and people stealing
Right.
stuff and like whatever. I guess it's how you choose to look at it. I look at it as like, thank God I didn't get rich, because then I would never have been this hungry.
Mhm.
And I've worked a lot of really less than desirable jobs, a lot of blue collar jobs that I really am proud of, but some jobs that I absolutely hated, or some jobs that were, not ideal. The blue collar ones I take great pride in, and I think they informed who I am.
Mhm.
And as a writer director, I think it makes me much more powerful because I have a better frame of reference. You know, going back to the Elizabeth Thomas story, I spent time in a classroom. I worked in education for 10
Right.
years. I was a coach. So knowing what that's like in a classroom, that was a huge advantage for me for those scenes, right?
Mhm.
Or having seen some of these dynamics play out,
Yeah.
understanding how you can bend the rules or how people are manipulative on top of the script, it gives you places to play and advantages. So I think people's preconceived notion is that everything is work, that the work is just magical, and that there isn't work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's as simple as trying. Like, you'll notice even when you watch this, like, I don't always look directly in both your eyes because, like, if I look at Jada right now, I'm going to lose myself to the camera. If I go to Dot and I'm really looking at Dot, like, there's all these subtle things. There's
Mhm.
finding your light. There's a
Mhm.
million functional, technical sides of what we do
Yep.
that no one ever sees. And I wanted to be great at all of them. And I like to think that I do well in all of them, but I'm always growing.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this. The volunteer work, because you do so many, like
Yeah.
you are, like people need to know the kind-hearted person that you really are, because you really do a lot of volunteer work in all types of industries. So let's talk about that, and then let's get to the fun, Michael.
Yeah, okay, go
You know
ahead.
what I mean?
Ask
Let's
me
get
whatever
to-
you want. Yeah,
let's
this is
get to the
where now we're
fun,
getting the danger
Michael.
area.
But first, let's talk about the volunteer work that you do for the communities. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think when you're famous, you have a voice, and how you choose to use that's very important. I've tried really hard to pick positive causes. I've tried really hard to not put it in anybody's face, but be very active.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important. You know, there are pivotal leaders throughout history. You know, for me, MLK and Jackie Robinson and people who had this frame of reference that the world is bigger than you. And I believe if you have the chance to make other people's lives easier, if you don't do it, you wasted your life.
Yeah.
And I've tried to echo that to my kids. So every major organization I've pretty much done something with, whether it be UNICEF, where I did a presentation to the United Nations as a teenager, and multiple things along the way. Habitat for Humanity. I don't know how many houses I've built. Me and Jimmy Carter are out there building houses all the time, and I love it.
Wow, that's
Use my construction,
Love
right?
that.
Like blue collar skills.
nice.
Yeah.
Homes for
Yeah.
veterans, right? Again, building houses, framing houses for people, and I'm the guy. Everybody else likes the photo op. I'm the guy you have to come find somewhere on the job site to get to stop because
Mhm.
I don't care about the photo. I want to do something productive. I want to feel like I made a difference. So, you know, I was a rescue diver. So, Red Cross, Special Olympics. I volunteer regularly, a couple days a week at a hospital with kids and babies. I've constantly been doing stuff in the community. I was a volunteer. I've been a coach for 26 years. I feel like if you have knowledge, it's only valuable if you give it to somebody else.
Mhm.
And the fastest way to help people grow is to give them whatever experiences you had and try to help expedite the process, right?
Right.
Because I was blessed. Like, I was really lucky to have people teach me things along
Sure.
the way. And I'm still trying to learn. And the truth is,
We all still try.
yeah,
To learn.
well, I hope. And giving back, I think giving back is probably the best thing for my soul.
Right.
And I would say people always have this thing about, you know, we've talked a bunch of times, Jada and I, about self-care.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Jada makes fun of me sometimes because I literally, but it's true for me, is giving back and doing stuff for other people is like the greatest form of self-care for me.
Why would I make fun of that?
No, because you joke. 'Cause- no, 'cause-
Great thing.
No, but you joke with me like you
Oh,
need to take a
no.
moment for yourself.
Oh, okay, fair.
And
And
I
maybe that is your moment. That's fine.
and I really have analyzed that
Mhm.
through our conversations. Like, but a lot of times that is my peace. That is
Mhm.
my joy. You
Yeah.
know, holding a sick baby or being on a palliative care team and being the last place someone comes before they pass
Wow.
away, or being a grief counselor and listening to people's stories or helping them process the loss or the loss of a child, or um, for me, that pain, if I can make it easier or help that transition.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like laughter. It's one of the reasons I love comedy. It's the thing I loved about working on Roseanne and the Connors was it's the live audience that comes. It's the people at home who get to feel better for 20 or 30 minutes because they watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing more powerful than that. And again, you get to do something that may help somebody else in their life. That's everything.
This is a lot to put on your dating profile, Michael.
I was getting ready to say,
This is what's wrong with my dating profile.
I was getting ready to say, I know the ladies who are watching or who are listening, they want to know, are you single or are you
Yes.
married?
No, I'm very single.
Okay.
I was married for 20 years,
Right.
and I loved being married.
Mhm.
My daughter just graduated from college, and in that moment, I kept thinking to myself how thankful I am to her mom because I have this incredible blessing of having these two beautiful children
Mm-hmm.
that we made together, but she carried them. So I will be eternally grateful for that.
Right.
Dating is a sensitive subject. It's not one I usually talk
Why,
about
Michael,
public.
is it sensitive?
Whew, that's,
Wow.
this seat just got a lot hotter. Where's the blindfold and the cigarette when I need it? And a stiff drink.
And a whiskey?
No,
Inquiring minds would like to know.
no. I like this. If I'm being totally honest, so dating's hard from the standpoint of I'm a public person,
Yes.
so people come with their preconceived notions.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a world where I get to do a lot of really amazing things, but I don't really define myself as an actor or a famous person. So I think people sometimes come to a potential relationship expecting something else, or they're more excited about it than I am.
Right.
For
They
me,
bring the
that's work.
representative instead of themselves.
Well, that's the biggest, hardest part.
Yes.
I am painfully authentic, would you say, Jada?
Not painful.
Like-
well,
like-
it depends on the person how they feel
Yeah.
about it.
And I am
Yes.
very much like, this is
Mhm.
the mirror. Like, is this
Yeah.
who you are? Like, I ask tough questions. And
Right.
so I don't want a surface level relationship.
Mhm.
Right.
It would be very easy for me. It would be very easy for me to be flippant and like run around all over town and do what a lot of celebrities go through that phase.
Right.
I want somebody who means everything. And
Yeah.
I have been very lucky. Like, I was really lucky in my marriage. I was so committed to that and loved being married. I love the partnership aspect of it. What I need is somebody who's reciprocal, and I have a very distinct list. I've done a lot of thinking about it. Jade and I have talked about it. Like, I've done a lot of like looking at emotional intelligence, looking at self-awareness, evaluating the things I'm good at. Where are my areas? Like, I'll tell people, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm bad at.
Right.
These are the areas that you're probably going to get
You're being
annoyed.
transparent.
Oh, I'm 100% transparent.
yeah.
That
This
scares
is turning
the hell out
into
of
the
people.
dating game show now.
Yeah,
For everybody
careful.
that's listening.
Well,
Don't let that be your host for that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
here's what I'll say though. It's terrifying because if I don't want people who come with an agenda.
Right.
I don't want to meet your representative
Yeah.
like you joked
and
about.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
want somebody with deep comfort. Like, I want somebody who can.
Mhm.
I'm a big kid at heart. I'm the guy who will still go jump on a playground and run around and do silly, ridiculous stuff. Just Jada laughs because she's seen me just be like 8 years old and a heartbeat, and I don't ever want to lose that side.
Right.
I'm also the provider, caretaker, and have been raising kids since I was 17 years
Mhm.
old. So I'm geared for the big moment or the emergency moment.
Right.
I'm the guy who runs into the burning building. I'm the guy you call when you're in a car crash. I'm the guy who was a rescue diver, who is used to chaos and shootings and
Mhm.
and none of that scares me. I want people
Mm.
who are deep and meaningful. And
Yeah.
so
Genuine.
it's hard in a world where people are pretty flippant and
Yeah.
people just want to hook up and dating apps are like it's swiping
Yeah.
left and right. I don't want to swipe left and right. I want to meet somebody and see what their brain looks like. And like,
Right.
I want to know your heart because
Yeah.
are you empathetic? Are you kind?
Mhm.
Are you loving? Do you want to go on adventures? Because I'm the guy you wake up and go, hey, I've always wanted to try this restaurant or I've always wanted to take this hike. And I'm like, I can be ready in 8 minutes.
Right.
Like, grab your stuff.
That's why I say let's talk about the fun, Michael. Now,
Yeah.
Since you're getting into that, what else do you like to do as far as fun?
Oh, geez. I'll try anything once, literally, probably twice if it's the right person. I'm super affectionate, so I want somebody who's like incredibly affectionate. Um, I'm ridiculously like I probably the term hopeless romantic probably applies because I'll do ridiculously kind
Yeah,
things, but I need that to be reciprocated at this
Right.
stage in my life,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't always set like going back to kind of stuff we talked. I didn't always set good boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I have been
Growth.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've been a guy who gave everything away.
Yeah.
Right down to giving away everything in my divorce, right down to I'm the guy who give my
Yeah.
shirt off my back, but I
Mhm.
need somebody who is a good receiver, right? Because if you're a giver, you want to be with another giver. You need to be with somebody who can receive in
Mhm.
a loving way, who appreciates it. I've
Yeah.
been in some relationships that were definitely imbalanced. I've even dated people who had kids and taken over providing for their kids and was all invested and was all in and literally said, I lost a child. So oof, every
Mm.
time. Um, so this is what you get is you get somebody
Yeah.
who is really connected to their heart. Um, so I can't come into a kid's life unless you know what you want
Right.
because I did come into a kid's life and I literally waited 10 months to meet him and I said, "Hey, you have to know before you introduce me to this child because
Right.
I don't know how to I can't walk away
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know that I can lose another one."
Yeah.
And I think as hard as losing my son was, losing another one that way was like
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
yeah, and
Just
so I'll
sorry
tell
to
you,
hear that.
like,
Yeah.
you have to have the ability to know who you are
Mm-hmm.
and know what you're made to do. And for me, that's like, man, I'm a clown and I want to play. Like, I want to run up a mountain. I want to go to Machu Picchu. I want to go explore Egypt. I want to, if you can find a wonder of the world or a place that's unique, I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to dance in the kitchen and like I want to cook and at this point probably play with grandkids, like
Mhm.
whatever it's gonna be.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
that borderline stage of I don't know if there are any more kids in my future, but I
But
don't
you
care.
never know.
Nieces, nephews,
Yeah.
kids, like I love little kids. Like I said, I volunteer with babies all the time.
Yeah.
The fun part of me, I was an athlete. So if there's competition, if there's a chance to play something,
Mm-hmm.
I want to play video games. I want to play board games. I want to compete. I want to take a class, right? It doesn't matter what the class is in.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something to go try, an adventure to be had, if
That's
you want to
awesome.
take a dance
Yeah.
class, a cooking class, like that's I'm that guy. If you want to just lay on the couch, I'm gonna probably drive you nuts because
Yeah.
I don't really know how to hold still.
Yeah.
Jada jokes because I'm a hummingbird. I don't know how to stand still.
But we were talking about vacations one time, and I was like, "You were definitely not a lay on the beach
No.
kind of like chill out, relax guy." Michael's like,
No,
"What's that
not
list
at all.
of?
No,
What's
I
my
am.
plan?"
What is there to see there, or what
Yep.
is no
Right.
one like? What does no one do there?
You're right.
Mhm.
What do the locals do?
That's the best.
What's
part.
on that island
is
that
definitely
almost
the best
nobody's ever
part.
seen,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm not the lay on the beach. I will do that for you.
Yeah.
Very limited, right? But I want to get in the water and
Short-lived.
scuba dive and like I want
Yeah.
to see the shipwreck.
You
I
have
want to
fun.
Adventure.
I want to make the most. I'm only there for a limited amount of
That's
time. I want
right.
to see
Yeah.
I have a limited number of days. I joke that I got about 18,000 days left.
He does this all the
I
time.
know.
That's how I
No,
live.
I remember
I
him
got about
saying that in the
18,000 days
studio.
left.
Yeah.
I want to make the most out of every one of them. I want to live them to the fullest. I want to spend, I probably only get about 4,000 or 5,000 left with my kids because they're grown ups and going to be doing their own thing. I want to take some trips with them. So
Mhm.
you have to be, if you're in my life, you got to know it's about family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's about adventure. And it's about, I have all these projects I want to build.
Mm-hmm.
I want to build shows I want to work about 30 to 40 weeks a year.
Right.
And I know that sounds crazy to people, but I'm like, and I'll work 17, 18-hour days.
Yeah. You want to keep busy.
The minute I'm done, I'm gonna flirt with you all day, and I want to come home and be passionate and like not to be inappropriate, but like I'm all about when I'm with you,
grown,
I'm
grown.
with you, right?
Right.
But I also want to I want to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I want somebody who's naturally happy.
And people don't do that all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
Sometimes people they forget how to be playful and to enjoy life and live life and have a great time.
Jada, when we go out and we're like, just if we take a walk or like whatever, and we're talking about stuff for the show, I literally am a hummingbird. I'm like, what? Oh, if there's a dog, I'm like, oh, there's a dog. Oh, let me say hi to your baby, right? Like, I don't need all the people to like me, but I do want everybody's dog and their baby to like me. Like, I am so... If you see kids out running around, like, am I not the first guy who's like, throw me the ball here?
Yeah.
Like, oh, what are they doing? Oh my goodness, watch out for, right? I can't help it. I want to climb everything. I still look at buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a rock climber, and like, I look at buildings and look up and like, I could totally climb that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still that way.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever lose that part of it.
No, you shouldn't. Yeah.
I
Why
mean, think
should
about
you?
the people who want to be able to do that and physically cannot.
Yes.
Too.
100%.
Yeah.
And there will come a day where I can't.
Yeah.
So I
Enjoy it now.
I abuse this body and I use it to the nth degree, and I like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm super. When we do this show, most of the time I'm relatively serious, but I'm such a clown. Like, I'm such a silly, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm such a goofy, like.
But you
and
know
in
what they say about
restaurants-
laughter? Laughter is good for your health.
Yeah.
And I'm appropriately funny. Like, most people make inappropriate jokes
Right.
away. Like, I'm the same person in front as behind, because I
Right.
found that being authentic is, if I had a superpower, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Is just being authentic and being me. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be anything else.
Yeah.
I want to be that and looking people square in the eyes and telling them things that they might not always want to hear. Because,
Well, anything else you want to say, Jay?
you got any other
Michael doesn't
questions?
like
You wanna
sauce on his food. I'm just saying.
I'm not a picky eater, though. I'm just specific about how I like certain things certain ways.
If you ask Michael where he wants to go eat,
Okay, so I will be honest. This is one of the areas I suck at. But I grew up in production, so I didn't pick where we eat. When I'm working in production,
Right.
the food's there. I eat whatever's available. So every time we have to pick a place to eat, I'm the worst because I literally don't care.
right?
I don't crave food.
Right.
But it's such a conflict. And in relationships, oh my God, it's the worst. Because you play
I
this
will
game.
remember the
You play this game.
sauce.
Where would you like to go to eat?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is what most people do. Oh, I don't care. And like, okay, how about this? No, I don't feel like that. What
why
about
did
this
you
place?
ask?
No, I don't feel about that. How about this? Do you have a type of food you want? Well, it's like I deplore the part where I'm supposed to get this right. It's the guessing game. Just tell me what you want to eat.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
I will find something to eat anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it
Well,
takes
everybody's
forever.
not like you, Michael.
No, most
Some
people. Well, I
you
joke
know,
with Jada.
yeah.
The reason people have this reaction
Yeah.
is because they're used to other people who go, oh, I don't care, and then literally give you crap for your choice, or that's not what I want. Like, and I literally never complain.
Right.
I've never complained about where we go eat, but it's annoying at times because sometimes I just have to be assertive and be like, we're going here. Because like
I've never heard that yet. I'm just saying we got to eat
Yeah,
sometimes, and it's like
That's because you're specific about what you like to eat.
Oh, the one time I said, we could get into this.
Yeah,
I'm not
go.
going to.
No, come on.
No, one time I literally was like, "Where should we go this time?" You're like, "Just pick a place. I'll follow you."
That is. Sometimes I'm like, you just go, and I'll
place
like,
and
That's my executive
follow.
decision. Just
Yeah.
pick a place.
just pick, because I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going there for the food.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth.
That's true.
I love to cook at home. I'm not going there for the food.
That's true.
I'm going there for you.
Right.
And
I'm
he
going
is-
there for the person.
And he is really good. And I will say, like, even with the wait staff and stuff, like, very
I
good.
love
Like, being like, what's your name? What do you recommend? And it like literally throws them off guard sometimes
yeah.
because I don't think,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing about
That's so nice.
paying
though.
attention to
Yeah.
the people who are doing all of these things that make these things look good and bring everyone together and to help you. But it's like, and some people get thrown off. They're like, "Oh, I'm John," and you're like, "Right."
You make
You're
them
like,
feel important.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
and how often do I end up eating something that's either not on the menu
right.
or not the way it's listed?
Mhm.
Because they go, oh, I love this, but I usually do this, or I substitute that, and I try it this way. And I'm like, absolutely, I'm in.
Yep.
And they're like,
Yeah.
they're like, what? Really? And then they're like, is
He's
it
taking
okay?
my
And
suggestion.
I'm like,
right?
I'm all in because
Yeah.
I love
I'm
that
in
though.
for the adventure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I want to love life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so on screen, off screen, like I love huge moments. I
Yeah.
love people,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I think if I live everything through the prism of my own experience, it's a really narrow lens. And so I've always tried really hard to listen to everybody else. I
Yeah.
want to know, sure, I'll try that. And there's sometimes where I'm like, they've walked away from the table a few times. I've looked at Jada and go, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is gonna work. Like, I might not like this. And there's a few times we've been at lunch and Jada looks at me and she goes, how is it? And I'm like,
Oh,
you
no.
might like it, but it's not my style,
Yeah.
right? Because
Oh,
I'm not a
no.
big cream sauce. I like very simple.
Yeah.
I would say if someone was going to say, what are you? I'm in love with the simple things that make life really valuable.
Oh, that's a good one right
Mm.
there.
Because I don't think I take things for granted. What do you think?
I agree.
I think I
100%.
celebrate it.
I agree.
And this is why he's a host on the show.
Well, and I love people. When people come to share their story,
Yeah.
their story matters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It matters to all of us. This
Yeah.
is
It
one of the
does.
things that brought us together is
Yeah.
like,
It does.
and I love when people share. It starts a conversation that usually continues with the three of us.
Mhm.
And it echoes through us and we are impacted and changed for it. And that's what I want. Human beings are supposed to be social collective beings. And I think right now, as much as social media gives us the chance to be together, it also has given everybody their own echo chamber.
Ooh, yeah.
And so people are stuck in their own little world.
Mhm.
I don't want to be in my own little world. I want, what's your weird little world look like? Because
Right.
I'm curious. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in.
I
No,
What
agree.
are
I
we
get
doing?
it. Yeah, I totally get it. I think this was a really get to know Michael
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
episode.
This might be one that we flush.
No,
We need like 5 parts
you
though.
know,
for this.
I'm
Wow,
sure
there's lots of
there
parts
could
of
be
my
a
life we
lot
need.
of episodes like this, but I'm pretty sure that the viewers love hearing about something extra about the host.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone that like follows the host or someone that's a really big fan. And so you take the time to break it down and let them know just who you are. And a lot of people they don't know who you are. So to bring that to the show today, we appreciate it because some things are off limits, but you were like, ask me what you want.
Maybe it's the life I've lived.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps that I love both of you.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
we
me
love you too, Michael.
And so it's a safe environment.
Yeah.
But I really am a person who, for the most part, there was a time in my life where I tried to keep everything really quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do think losing my son was a shift in that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I always, we've talked about this for years. The thing about 18,000 days, that is literally how I live my life.
Mm.
Is, it means I have 18,000 more meals times 3,
Right.
right? So I have 50,000 more meals. I want to spend as many of those with people who matter as possible.
Yeah.
I want to be, the Jimmy V Foundation. When Jimmy V gave his speech, he had cancer. And his 3 things they've echoed in my mind, which is every day you should be moved to tears. And every day you should have deep conversation that make you think.
Mm.
And then you should share moments with other people. Like those things for me. I've tried to steal bits of wisdom along the way. And I am still evolving and building kind of my perspective of life. And, Jade and I joke a lot too, because like I could write a book on all the different jobs I've had or grief, because I've been to over
Right.
100 funerals.
Oh
And
goodness.
I learned really early on in life what loss was, but it also made me uniquely aware of what living was.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
it.
I like that.
Right?
Yep.
I like that.
So for
Yes.
people who find us,
Mm-hmm.
I hope my heart always resonates through.
Oh,
So
it
hopefully
will.
I didn't bore you to death today.
Not
No.
at all.
I'm the
No, not
one
at
subject that
all.
I'm least interested in talking about is me because it's the one I know the most.
Right.
but I'm finding new parts of me all the time. And
Mhm.
I think you guys are instilling new parts of me, and our audience instills new parts in me. And so that's the best part for me about having
Yeah.
our guests is they change me. They
Mhm.
mold a new piece of me.
Yeah. I mean, this is what we do.
That's what we do.
You know, this is what we do. That's why we're sitting here today and we share our journeys.
Check out Dot's pants. They're so cute. She wouldn't stop talking about them just so everybody knows.
Well, now, if we're going to go into that, the one thing Dot said is, I wore my good pants today.
right?
And I was like, I'm not worthy of the good pants. I was like, good to know, Dot. I love you. I'm like, yeah, if I had known we were talking about me, I probably wore some kind of inappropriate t-shirt because that's my personality.
No,
This is why I just dress the same all the way across the board.
That's not it. Not it at all.
But actually, you look elegant today.
Thank
too.
you.
She's got her gold copper. I don't know if you can see her copper lipstick, but
Probably can.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. You have this
Thank you.
there's this beautiful touch of class, but there's a very modern,
Mhm.
creative trend setting element to you.
Thank you.
That listen, I aspire as I go forward because clearly that is not my area. I have other areas. So if I was looking for a partner, somebody who has some aesthetic touch, because that's not my area. Put that on my profile.
Okay.
it's going to be a very long profile.
Yeah.
But thank you.
That bored
yes.
everyone to death.
No, it did not. Thank
No.
you so
They're like,
much.
can we change Lovesick to we're sick of
Sick of-
No.
Michael's self-love?
And this episode of Michael from
Oh.
our Lovesick host.
Yeah, if you knew that's the thing that makes me sick to my stomach. We make it about me.
Michael said.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you all seriously
Yes.
for joining us and getting to know Michael Fishman today. And
Yes.
us.
I think Jay is next.
nope. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.